Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we'll be talking about the spell Dominate Beast. Oh man, I can't get past just trying to make your mom joke. Oh,
All right. Yeah. Well,
that's not
anyway.
what this spell is, though.
No, it is not. The spell is dominate person, but for beasts.
Now
They've got
beasts are separate from monsters, though, right? There's dominate monster. That's a different spell.
Mm-hmm.
So what does beast include?
Beast is beasts.
Animals.
Yeah, giant apes, alligators, wasps, those kinds of stuff, right? The actual list includes like dinosaurs and whatnot, so you can get some neat things. There are some specific problems with the beast type that we'll cover shortly, I'm sure. But for right now, going over what the spell actually does. This is a 4th level spell for very specifically druids, but also 2 warlock subclasses and sorcerers. So it's not a wizard spell, which is odd that it's on the sorcerer list and not wizard. I don't know why it is, but here we are. Anyway,
can't give wizards everything.
Listen, I agree. I just don't know why this was the arbitrary choice to give it to sorcerers and not wizards. I don't know. I'm actually a big proponent of separating those more. I agree. Anyway, so this is an action to cast, 60-foot range, minute concentration. You attempt to charm a beast. It makes a whiz save or is charmed by you for the duration. If you're fighting it with your buddies, it has advantage on the save. So if you're into a squad of giant apes that are pummeling the shit out of you all, it'll have advantage on the save. Now, granted, it's a whiz save and beasts don't necessarily have all that high of wisdom, but it's not like int or anything. They'll probably have at least like a 10. While it's charmed by you, you telepathic link, and you can use that link to give it commands, no action required, which it will do its best to obey. It can be as simple or general as you like. So it can be like, go kill that thing, or it can be go jump off a cliff. It doesn't, if it completes the order, it doesn't receive more instructions. It just defends itself to the best of its ability, which is just a little rider that it normally has. Additionally, you can use your action to get precise control over it, in which case you get to basically just play as it for its turn. During the time, you can also cause it to use its reaction using your own reaction. So like if it would get an attack opportunity, you can use yours and its reaction to punch something. I think you'll almost never do this part of the spell. Each time it takes damage, it repeats the save, ending it on a success. Neat little upcast thing. It increases its duration to 10 minutes with concentration, and then if you use as 5th level slots, if you use 6, it goes up to an hour. If you use 7th or higher, it's concentration up to 8 hours. So this is a way to kind of get long-term control over some beasts. Granted, it still has all the riders of if it takes damage, it makes an extra whiz save, so it's not like particularly useful. But
now,
it's fine.
You said you can command it to jump off a cliff. Because a lot of these charm spells they'll fail if you ask them to do something suicidal, but
most of the dominate ones you can use to inflict harm on themselves. Most of the dominate ones are like charm plus. So like suggestion and charm person, or suggestion specifically, is the one that's like you can't make a suggestion that makes it hurt itself. You can't make it try and take an unreasonable course of action that causes itself harm. With the dominate spells, I'm reading one more time just to make sure. But yeah, it'll do whatever you tell it to, regardless of whether or not it's safe for it. Now, granted, if it does hurt itself, it gets to immediately make whiz save to stop doing that. But if you say jump off that really large cliff, it probably is not going to survive to make that whiz save.
And there's also there's no intelligence prerequisite like
this affects anything with the beast subtype.
Beast bond that because this reads kind of a lot like beast bond, at least flavorly, thematically, except that it's not garbage necessarily.
Like honestly, it's baffling to me that this isn't a ranger spell out the gate.
Yeah, that's weird.
I wouldn't even say it's that good as a ranger spell because it's still a 4th level spell, and it's still like you probably have other ways to control your beasts by that point. But like still, I would expect it to be there. But it's not. And as a druid spell, meh. I don't know. I think so. The text here is fine, right? The text here, if you're fighting against specifically beasts, seems pretty good. It can be a way that right before a fight breaks out, you like yoink a giant elk, you yoink a brontosaurus. I don't know. You find some beast, you're like, hey, you're on our team now. Until it dies or takes a bunch of damage. So that's nifty. It's better out of combat than it is in combat, which is kind of odd with a minute duration. Because of the minute duration, it's hard to necessarily get something to be that useful for a minute. That makes the upcasts a lot more interesting to me. Like, I think specifically for the hour for a 6th level slot is where I think is the sweet spot if you're able to charm like the CR, because there aren't a lot of upper CR. It's the highest CR they get is like 8 with T-Rexes. So if you're doing like Giant Ape on 7 CR, Mammoth on 6 CRs, that's where you want it to be. And I think the hour-long duration, having a mammoth on your team for an hour is neat, and you can do some cool things with that because of its huge size. If you ever get a brontosaurus, it's gargantuan. That's only CR like 5. So it's going to be very specific to environments, but that's where I think it's most
what are you
useful.
doing with these out of combat though? Like Fred Flintstone construction or what?
Yeah, leveraging their
Right.
gigantic strength, using them as the stick end of bargaining to be like, yeah, you're gonna help us, or this T-Rex is gonna trample through all of your food or all your crops, right? Like, I imagine this is they tend to be tools to weaponize their speeds oftentimes. Like giant apes have climb speeds that you can be like, hey, go grab all of those things, scale the side of this building, break us in, that kind of deal.
Mm.
That's not more powerful than other 6th level or 5th level or even 4th level spell slots for a lot of it. A lot of it, you're not going to be able to do necessarily things that summoning spells can't do better. And this is all riding on the contingency of you are in a circumstance where you're finding one of these upper CR things. So the moment you get to the lower CR stuff, just cast Conjure Animals. It's
Right.
better
Yeah. I
than
mean,
this.
well, there's a lot of different comparable spells, but I don't know off the top of my head what levels they are. Like, I don't know. Dominate Monster seems like it would cover a lot of better and more useful creatures. But what level is Dominate Monster, and who gets that?
So Dominate Monster is a 8th level spell.
Ah, all right. Well, that is a lot different then.
Yes. And notably, it also just comes with the duration of an hour. So I was talking about earlier, like, you really want to upcast this if you want to do the out of combat stuff with it, because it's a lot worse in combat whenever it's repeatedly making saves as it keeps taking damage. It's still useful there, right? Like, this is a save or die that flips that enemy onto your team. If that ever goes off, like if you are fighting against giant apes, if you are fighting against 3 T-Rexes or a T-Rex and a bunch of velociraptors, turning the T-Rex onto your team for even a turn, real good. Very powerful stuff where it's like all of a sudden the enemy team's down actions, your team's up actions, and up a bunch of hit points, and is wreaking a bunch of havoc and doing a bunch of damage and cool stuff, right? So it can be good in combat circumstances. Dominate Person fits basically the exact same bill, except Dominate Person is useful in the majority of environments, whereas Dominate Beast, I'm going to go as far as to say it is not going to get cast outside of like the moment you get it at 7th level. Beasts aren't common in the upper tiers specifically. Like, there aren't going to be a lot of encounters where you care about, 3 wolves. You're not going to get into the mid to upper tiers and still be fighting against black bears. You're not going to be going in and being like, oh, look at all those tigers that we have to worry about, right? Like, we're not, as the game progresses, the bulk of their CRs are 5 and under. So once you're getting to 7th level, you're starting to eclipse where those fights tend to be. Plus, like, a lot of DMs aren't really comfortable being like, yeah, go murder those elephants. Like, that's probably not the kind of adventure you're doing. Like, you're normally not playing as the poachers, right? And it just leads this to be like, if you're in the jungle of troll fighting dinosaurs, okay. If you're anywhere else, what do you cast this on?
Yeah, well, that's why I was exploring other things, like Dominate Monster. There's heaps of monsters, but yeah, not so many beasts. What about all right, well, how does it compare to conjuring spells? You brought
way
that
worse
up
in
earlier.
every possible facet.
Well, what about the levels of the spells though?
Okay, so
what are we comparing this to specifically?
Out the gate, I'm going to compare it to Summon Beast, which came out in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. I think this is the new standard for summoning magic. I think this is the healthiest it's ever been. It is wildly powerful, but it's a 2nd level spell. And it gives you your choice of a small beast that can have the fly speed, swim speed, or a ground regular climb speed. That on its own does the bulk of what I want the spell to do for me, lasts an hour, and is half the level. And notably also always works. If we look at Conjure Animals, which is the one from the PHB, Conjure Animals is, I believe, just the same spell level. I'm sorry, it's a level lower. It's a 3rd level spell. If you're ever dominating a beast that's CR2 or lower, you can get it out of Charm Animals or Conjure Animals. So that's something to be like, oh, that's a red flag. you could just summon one beast of CR2 or lower. You don't need to dominate it. You don't need to have a save, and you don't need to only control it for a minute. You can control it for longer than that on a lower level spell slot and have it never lose control by damage or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So immediately, everything around Dominate Beast is like, oh, wait. There are lower level spells that are doing everything I'd want this to do better outside of the specific case of removing an enemy combatant. Are you taking a
dinosaurs?
Spell? Yeah, or dinosaurs. I'm not sure that there are enough encounters that involve giant apes and dinosaurs to justify this existing. Yeah, I really don't see it.
Yeah, I don't either.
And like, even from the
it's not
perspective,
Beast Bond bad, but yeah.
Yeah, like the situations where it would be good are like, okay, it turns a CR7 thing into our buddy. That's pretty good. It's like 3 creatures are valid for this targeting though that make it worth it. And like whenever we are comparing it to like if its most common use case is it being the worst possible way to use conjure animals, I don't want that on my character sheet. Conjure animals should be summoning 8 beasts of CR 1/4 or lower, a bunch of giant owls to fly the party around. It should be getting upcast to give you like with 5th level slots to get 16 creatures. Like there's way more bunch of things you can do with Conjuration Match. Conjuration Match is cracked in half. Like even, like I said, the new bog standard Summon Beast being a 2nd level spell, upcasting it gives you more stuff to it. It gives you the ability to make multiple attacks. It gives you the ability to have a very controllable Finite. You don't even need to spend bonus actions on a companion that does the combat thing. It's half of Dominate Beast, at least, by giving you like a team combatant that will help you. It doesn't stop if it takes damage, and it can act in multiple fights. It can soak up damage when you want it to and be defensive. It follows your exact commands all the time without having you spend actions giving it very precise commands, right? I don't get it.
You have conjuration alternatives at lower levels to this, and I have to think you have better 4th level spell options, for both druids and sorcerers. Yeah.
Yes. We don't need to go through that do this specific thing. So if we're talking sorcerers, polymorph exists. Turn it into a squirrel. That T-Rex doesn't exist anymore. And that's ubiquitous. It doesn't have to be against beasts. You can polymorph anything. It doesn't matter. It's just that T-Rex is a squirrel now. Done. Period. Easy peasy. Now that the threat has gone away, you can put the squirrel in a back pocket, you can throw it in the ocean, wait for it to drown until then it's a T-Rex stuck underwater and can't swim. That's a way to deal with that problem, right?
Also hilarious.
Druids are a little bit worse in the spellcasting front outside of their conjuration magic, which is why, conjure animals is way better than this. And it's something that druids can be doing. I don't have the druid spell list up on top, at this exact second. I'm positive there's better 4th level spells than this. It can't, there are pretty bad. You get Ice Storm and stuff. Druids get polymorph. So you already have that if your goal is to remove an enemy combatant to your team, right? The things that this spell you would take you have options that are out. I'm not going to say they're better than Dominate Beast when Dominate Beast is good, but they're almost as good, and they're also usable in 99% of your encounters as opposed to the 0.01% of the time you're using T-Rexes. So,
all right, you got a score for this one?
I will go as far to say this is a 1. I really don't think there are enough applicable fights, especially by 7th level, where controlling an enemy beast in combat is good. If this was a 2nd or 1st level spell, I'd be like, okay, maybe in the early tiers you use those on wolves, gated CR at 2, and then you can use this as a way to oh, okay, I can manipulate and interact with the 1st level giant rat fight, right? As a 4th level spell, you don't care to dominate beasts at that point in time. You're past that tier. You're looking to fight fiends and celestials and elementals and undead and stuff at that point tier. I don't think you care about giant elks, right?
No. Yeah, I don't know. I don't hate it, but
when would you cast it?
Well, no, yeah, this is one I can't justify giving it a 2.
Yeah.
And I don't care enough to ask the audience to help me. So no, I'll agree with your 1. Still, I encourage you to leave comments, listeners. But yeah, snore.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was giant. No, that was not giant anything. That was Dominate Beast.
Got there.
Right? Yes. All right. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.